job to get stuff into shops. It's a tougher job to get more stuff into shops if the stuff that you've just got in there last week hasn't sold. So it's all about our reputation and the resources at your disposal. So I was convinced a distributor that I used to work for that we would be a good bet and we would do our job in terms of marketing and get good press and that kind of thing. So that was really important. Obviously important to know how to do that in terms of creating press for you, either doing it yourself or employing a press agent.
So you approached distribution companies to distribute your vinyl?
Yeah.
And who was that?
Well, the company I used to work for, which is Shell Shock, who do actually have an office in Norwich, with their export department is Bax, who used to be part of the cartel back in the day when Rough Trade when Rough Trade kind of invented independent distribution in the late 70s. Bax were part of that. It was about a collection of big record stores around the country, and Bax were one of them.
So through this distributor, where could you hope to get your vinyl?
Well, I mean, at that time, Shell Shock don't physically send out orders to shops. They use what they call an order fulfillment service, so another big sort of warehouse physical distributor to actually do the boxes. And that time there was a company called Pinnacle, who actually went bust 18 months ago to huge devastation across the industry, including our label. But
and a couple of people were burned by them.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, they still are. I think they still owed a couple of grand from that. But, yeah. But so they were at the time were going through Pinnacle. Every shop in the country had an account with Pinnacle. If you wanted either the Britney Spears CD or sort of latest hip hop, you needed an account with Pinnacle. So every single record shop had an account there. So penetration was possible if you had the right kind of marketing spin. So the main culprits, which still are people like Rough Trade in London, Piccadilly, Manchester, Jumbo and Leeds, all the kind of main sort of indie shops that people go in. But as well as that, the chains, which at that time was not just H&B, but also Virgin and Our Price and those sort of things.
So how does it, just for for people who don't know, how does it work with the distributor? Is it SOR, which is sell or return, which basically means that the distributor will say that we will take sort of 3,000 or 4,000 units at a certain price, and then what we don't sell, we'll return to you, which is...
but they won't be paying up front. I mean, they're basically taking stuff on consignment. They'll only even warehouse the amount that they want to have physically in their warehouse. Some distributors actually charge you for warehousing space as well. I mean, ours don't, but that's reflected in a higher fee that they take out of it, because it's all about a percentage that they take from the dealer price that they sell into shops at.
Cold cash.
Sorry?
Cold cash. How much are you selling to the distributor, and how much are they selling to the shops?
Well, on a CD album, you can't really have a CD that full price is retailing more than £10 now. So that means that the shop's buying it at £5.50, and then the distributor's taking 30% of that, basically. Or ours is. You can get smaller percentages that they'll take, but then they'll have hidden costs. We don't have any hidden costs. They don't charge us for returns. They don't charge us for warehousing and other things that others would do. So we're getting back, something like 350, 375 a unit.
For an album? That would sell in shops with that?
Yeah. Which is, so if you sell...
The harsh cut?
But then... I mean, I think it's... The equation traditionally for a shop to buy in is, if you sort of multiply dealer price by 1.8, that's kind of roughly, so 550 is roughly sort of £10. And that's pretty much the kind of ratio across the board here.
And how would that compare with the likes of Sony? I mean, I guess it's all about economies of scale.
Yeah. Theoretically, the percentages should be the same, except that they've got more scope, they've got more clout, they've got more scope. What they would certainly do when I was working in retail is feed you loads of free copies up front as well, so that you would just have them all wrapped and all stocked. Certainly do it with singles. You'd get loads of free singles to sell at 99p just so that you'd have them and you'd sell them. And for them, it's all about market share. So market share doesn't mean necessarily making money, just talking about being there. I mean, it's about making money, but it's not necessarily about making profits. It's about being, having that share of the market. So they've got more clout in that sense. But I think the theory is the same. For a retailer's point of view, they want the same deal.
You mentioned that you kind of need to give the distributor some sort of assurance that you will market the product successfully, that you'll get press, that you'll get PR.
Yeah.
So, can I just ask how many people are working for your label? How many people are involved in Hungry Audio on a full-time, part-time basis?
Well, it's changed recently actually, but it's up until last autumn there were 5 partners, and so we sort of took a slice of responsibility each, although my slice seemed to get bigger and bigger, but another story. But that's partly why we changed the structure. But there's 5 of us, and some of us more responsible for A&R. I mean, one of us was actually one of the partners was actually a journalist in London, was sub-editor at The Face, and then Maxim, and now Time Out. So that was kind of useful for having that sort of presence in London as well.
So how did you go about doing press and PR? Because when a band signs to you, I would imagine that you know how it is. That they've rehearsed, they've practiced in rehearsal rooms, they've done gigs around the country, and the fact that they've signed a deal, they have the same expectations, I would imagine, of you as they do perhaps unfairly of the EMI or one of the majors, that they want to cut through. So.
Yeah, I don't think they do. I mean, I think Sennen were, I suppose, the first, completely fresh band that we sort of worked with. So I think they were, sort of grateful for anything we could get them, really. And I think their expectations have pretty much been met at each stage, which is why they're still with us, I think, really. I mean, they could probably have gone elsewhere. I thought we might have got rid of them by now, actually. But I mean, we've grown with them, really, which is fine. But I mean, in terms of getting that press, the first release I did myself, just mailing stuff to journalists, but it was a little bit of an easy sell because Telescope had a name, so it wasn't about a fresh band, but it was a fresh label. But second release, we employed a local PR person who was sort of specialist, what's called these little indie records, really, and she got us kind of what we were expecting to read, sort of views and driving sounds and sort of web scenes and blogs and stuff. And then we started, after that, for albums, started using, certainly for the first 7 albums, started using London-based PR companies, which don't come cheap. Yeah. I mean, obviously, major record companies, that's another difference. So major record companies will have an in-house press department usually, but independents don't have that kind of scale, so they'll be contracting out to people that have the relationships with journalists. So, that's when we started using London-based PR firms, really, which you can't really get around. I mean, I think there's certain releases that it doesn't make any sense to do that for, because you're suddenly top-loading the cost of the whole release. And if you were doing a digital-only release and you don't expect to get that much back, then spending $2-3 grand just on press doesn't make a lot of sense.
Digital-only release being maybe $3 grand.
Well, it's more complicated than that now, really, with Spotify and other things. But that's all part of the digital release now. It's not just an MP3. It's also, streaming services are a part of that release now, and seen as a sort of bona fide line. And it's really affected, actually. I mean, perhaps come on to that anyway, but it's really affected the sales of MP3. Certainly for us, I think for everybody, actually. Particularly Spotify is having a quite a profound effect on the way the whole industry is working.
Really? Yeah. Did you benefit through Spotify?
Nobody does. No. Nobody's making any money from Spotify, except Spotify. Well, actually, they're not actually making that much money, but they're certainly collecting it. That's an interesting. It's a bit of a political thing with Spotify. No one's quite sure how that's going to. I mean, the service is great as a punter, and I'm sure if any of you use it as well, it's really